The bench creaked beneath her weight. 3 days it had grown the same way, wood splintering against the heat, dust settling in her skirts. The sun beat down, drawing lines of sweat along the black of her morning dress. She didn't shift. She didn't blink. Only the slow drag of the second hand on the cracked clock above the station door marked the hours she refused to leave behind. The train roared past again, iron shrieking against the rails, smoke coughing black into the clear sky. Passengers climbed down, others climbed up. Boots scuffed, voices muttered, trunks slammed. Each time the whistle faded, the platform thinned to silence, and she was still there. Hands folded tight over the handle of her carpet bag, gaze locked on the horizon as though the desert itself owed her an answer. The town had started watching. Men with hats low over their eyes leaned in the doorframe of the saloon. The barkeep's wife lingered on the porch with her broom, sweeping the same patch of wood until her arms ached. Even the sheriff had walked by twice, pretending to check the telegraph. The talk was whispered, low as wind through sagebrush. She's waiting on a man never coming. Mail-order bride, likely, or a widow looking for a ghost. 3 days without moving. Ain't natural. The cicadas screamed louder, as though the air itself wished to drown the silence she carried. A fly crawled across her cheek. She did not brush it away. On the third afternoon, when the sky lay heavy with yellow light and the town held its breath for thunder that never came, a pair of boots clomped on the platform. Too small for a man, too determined for a child. Dust caked the leather. The steps came straight for her bench. She lifted her eyes. A boy stood before her, hat too wide for his head, brim shadowing, eyes the color of baked earth. He clutched a dented tin pail in one hand, the other resting on his belt as if he carried the weight of a man's gun. His cheeks were sun-browned, his mouth drawn in a line older than his years. "Ma'am," he said, voice thin but steady, "you've been waiting a long time." The townsfolk's whispers hushed. The saloon door stilled. Even the broom on the porch stopped sweeping. The boy took one step closer, raising his chin. "Will you wed my daddy instead?" The words cracked the air sharper than gunfire. For the first time in 3 days, her fingers loosened on the carpet bag. Her breath caught, shallow, as though the child had pressed a hand to her ribs and stolen what little life she'd held. She searched his face for jest, for the kind of cruel joke men played when liquor ran mean. But there was no mockery in him, only earnest hunger, the kind not fed by bread. Boots scraped against the platform. The station agent, old Henry with his crooked spectacles, leaned out the doorway, mouth sagging open. He spat tobacco to the ground and muttered, just loud enough for those gathered. Dustwater's about to see something stir. The boy stood waiting, unwavering, hat brim quivering with the faintest tremor of hope. She stared back, her lips parting but no words finding their way through. The cicadas sang on, the clock ticked, the sky pressed low. And in that hollow stillness, the town began to believe a story was being born. The boy's hand tugged at her sleeve. "Come on, ma'am. He's waiting." The platform boards groaned under their steps as he led her away from the bench that had held her grief for 3 days. The crowd thinned behind them, voices rising in speculation, but no one followed. The sun sagged toward the far ridges, throwing the town in long, bruised shadows. They passed the saloon. Laughter snapped off sharp as the door swung open and a half-dozen men spilled onto the porch. Dust clung to their coats, pistols heavy at their sides. Their leader stepped forward, scar running white across a sunburned cheek, eyes like broken glass. Silas Pike. His smile cut thin. "Well now," he drawled, Boothiel grinding against the step, "if it ain't little Ethan Briggs." His gaze slid toward her, lingered like grease. "And what's this?" "Pick yourself a new mama." The boy's grip on her hand tightened. "Leave us be, Mr. Pike," Ethan said, voice brittle. The gang chuckled. Pike knelt. Close enough, she smelled the sour whiskey on his breath. "Your daddy owes me, boy. Owes me more than cattle and coin. You tell him I'll be collecting soon." His eyes flicked back to her, slow and deliberate. "Maybe I'll take interest while I wait." Her breath burned in her chest. She kept her eyes steady on his, unblinking, silent as stone. Pike's grin faltered for half a beat before he spat into the dust and straightened. "Run along," he said, waving them off with a flick of his hand. "Go tell Jonah Briggs the desert's coming to his door." Ethan pulled her faster, away from the porch, past the sheriff's empty chair outside the jailhouse, past the dry trough where horses swatted flies with their tails. The boy didn't speak until the town was behind them, the road stretching wide into the open desert. "He's been saying that near every week," Ethan muttered. "Pa don't answer him. Just keeps working, like if he don't hear, it'll go away." His shoulders slumped under the weight of words too heavy for a child. The desert spread endless around them, cracked earth and thornbush, the horizon trembling with heat. Far ahead, black against the dying sun, a windmill spun crooked above a scatter of fence posts and a ranch house beaten gray by years of wind. She slowed, skirts dragging in the dust. "Why'd you come to me?" Ethan looked up, his hat brim lifting to reveal eyes gone wet but stubborn. "You waited, ma'am. 3 days. Folks thought you was foolish. I thought maybe you was just waiting for us." Her throat closed. She looked away, to the jagged line of canyons cutting the west. The silence of a land pressed in, broken only by the dry creak of the windmill as they drew closer. At the ranch yard, boards sagged, a porch step snapped beneath Ethan's boots, and cattle bones whitened in the weeds. A man stood by the corral, sleeves rolled, shoulders heavy, driving a fence post deeper with the swing of a hammer. His back was broad, hair dark with sweat, movement steady but worn. "Pa," Ethan called, running ahead. The hammer stilled mid-swing. Jonah Briggs turned. His face bore the lines of sun and grief, a man carved hollow by too many losses. He looked from his boy to the stranger in black stepping slow through the dust. "She's here, Pa," Ethan said, planting himself between them. "She's the one I told you." The hammer dropped to the dirt. Jonah's eyes met hers, guarded, questioning. The air hung taut like the moment before lightning. From the ridge behind, the cry of coyotes rose sharp and thin, carrying across the fields. The lantern hissed in the wind. Its light caught the lines in Jonah's face as he sat hunched at the kitchen table, hands clasped tight, knuckles white as bone. The boy slept in the loft above, his boots still by the door. Across from Jonah, she stood silent, black dress brushing the floor, revolver resting on the table between them like an unspoken sentence. Jonah's jaw worked. "He'll burn this place to ash if I don't give him what he wants." Her eyes stayed on the Colt. The steel gleamed dull in the lamplight, worn from years but oiled, cared for. She had not touched it since she'd buried her husband, not until tonight. "Ethan will live," Jonas said, voice low, "if I just hand the land over. A man can start again, somewhere else." Her hand closed around the grip. The leather felt alive, familiar, as though the years between had been no more than a breath. She lifted it, thumb brushing the hammer, and the air thickened with the weight of memory. Jonah's gaze sharpened. "You handle that like it ain't the first time." The lantern flame shuddered. Shadows crawled along the walls. She did not answer, only set the gun back down, the sound sharp as iron on stone. Outside, the windmill groaned, turning slow against the night. Boards of the barn rattled, the cattle lowed, uneasy. The land itself seemed to sense the storm rolling nearer. Jonah pushed back from the table, rising to his full height. "I'll ride into town at first light. End this before it touches Ethan. You ride in alone, you'll be dead before your boots hit the dust." Her voice cut steady, iron beneath the grief. His brow furrowed. "Then what would you have me do?" Her eyes lifted steady on his. "Fight." The word hung between them, cold and final. Jonah's shoulders sagged, a man long used to bending until breaking seemed easier than standing. He turned from her, to the dark window where his boy's reflection lingered faint above. "I ain't that man no more." The silence stretched. Then came her voice low, carrying weight like scripture. "Neither was I." She stepped closer, the lantern light finding her eyes. "Mary Callahan," she said at last, the name sharp as a knife unsheathed. "Some call me Widow's Hand." Jonah turned, his face hard with disbelief. "I laid it down," she went on, hand brushing the gun once more. Swore never again after the border took my husband. But vow don't bury what a body is. Jonah studied her, the truth settling like dust after a storm. The widow in black was no waiting ghost. She was a weapon long sheathed, edge still sharp. From the loft, Ethan stirred, rolling in his sleep. His soft breath carried down, fragile as glass. Jonah's gaze lingered there, then returned to her. You'd kill for a boy who ain't yours? She held his stare. I'd kill for a boy who asked. The wind pressed harder at the walls. The lantern flame guttered. In the distance, faint as thunder, came the sound of hooves. Jonah's breath caught. They're early. She reached for the revolver, sliding it into the holster at her hip. Her black dress shifted like a shroud, but her stance was straight, strong. Then we meet them early. Jonah swallowed, the weight of choice pressing heavier than debt, heavier than land. He picked up his rifle from the rack by the door, fingers tightening around the stock. For the first time in years, the Briggs Ranch held more than grief. It held reckoning. The hooves struck first, iron on hardpan, echoing through the canyon mouth like war drums. Dustwater stirred awake, shutters cracking open, eyes peering from dark windows. The saloon doors swung wide, and Silas Pike stepped out, flanked by 6 men with rifles slung loose, grin sharp as knives. At the far end of the street, 3 riders came slow through the rising haze. Jonah Briggs, shoulders squared but heavy, the boy Ethan perched on the wagon seat behind, and beside them the widow in black, revolver at her hip, eyes fixed forward. The air tasted of dust and iron. No one spoke. Pike spat into the dirt and spread his arms wide. Well now, Jonah Briggs found his spine and brought the station ghost to keep him company. His men laughed, boots stomping the boards. Mary stepped down from the wagon, skirts trailing, boots sinking deep into the street. She did not answer. She did not blink. Her hand hovered near the Colt, fingers loose, steady. Pike's smirk faltered. He tilted his head. She may need to fight. The boy's voice cut across the silence, high and clear. She ain't waiting no more. The gang's laughter died. Pike's eyes narrowed. He jerked his chin, and rifles lifted. The first shot cracked. Wood splintered from the post, near Jonah's shoulder. The townsfolk gasped and ducked. Mary moved. Steel cleared leather with the sound of a whisper, and fire bloomed from the muzzle. One man dropped before his rifle rose, chest torn open. Another staggered, clutching his throat. Smoke curled around her face as she stepped forward, each shot measured, precise, final. Jonah fired from the wagon, rifle bucking against his shoulder, driving the gang back toward the saloon. The street boiled with dust and gunpowder, boots skidding, curses flying. Pike bellowed, drawing his own iron. You think to stand against me, widow? Her eyes locked on him through the smoke. I think to finish what grief could not. They fired together. His shot grazed her sleeve, tearing black cloth. Hers slammed into his shoulder, spinning him hard against the saloon post. He snarled, teeth bared, and fired again. The bullet kicked dirt at her feet. She kept walking, step by step, dress trailing smoke, eyes never leaving his. Jonah shouted her name, but she did not stop. Pike's hand shook. Blood ran down his arm. He tried to raise the gun again. She fired once more, clean straight. The bullet struck true. The scarred man crumpled into the dust, revolver slipping from his grasp. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the crackle of smoke drifting down the street. One by one, the townsfolk emerged. From windows, from porches, from the shadows of fear they had long hidden in. The gang survivors dropped their rifles and fled into the desert. Jonah lowered his weapon, chest heaving. His eyes found her, the widow in black, smoke still curling from the barrel of her Colt. Ethan leapt from the wagon, running to her side, his small hand clutching hers. The boy looked up, eyes bright with a kind of belief that cannot be bought nor broken. I told you, Pa. She's the one. Jonah's voice caught, rough as gravel. Reckon you were right, son. The sun broke over the rooftops, lighting the street where blood and dust mingled. And in years to come, when children gathered round the fire and old men leaned close with voices low, they told of the widow who waited 3 days at the station until a child in boots gave her reason to rise. They said her hand was steady as justice, her heart strong as the desert, and that on the day Dustwater stood face to face with ruin, it was Mary Callahan who carved legend into its soil.